बच्चन साहब के बारे में बोलने के समय कहाँ से शुरू करें और कहाँ से खत्म करें?
बच्चन साहब के लिए तो जहाँ से आप बोलना शुरू करेंगे लाइन वहीं से शुरू हो जाएगी ना।
वाह वाह।
अभी बच्चन की बात शुरू हो रही है तो थोड़ा शर्माने लगा हूँ।
The big screen was invented to capture this personality who would not fit into anything lesser than a 70 mm. The 70 mm was made for him. And the Dolby digital technology was almost an afterthought when people realized that this voice needed the technology to upgrade to match up to him.
अरे वाह।
Since Sandeep mentioned about दो और तो पांच, I have to do it. तूने मुझे देखा नहीं देखा है तो जाना नहीं जाना है तो माना नहीं मुझे पहचाना नहीं दुनिया दीवानी मेरी मेरे पीछे पीछे भागी किसका है दम यहाँ ठहरे जो मेरे आगे आना नहीं देखो टकराना नहीं किसी से भी आ रहे नहीं हम।
वाह
बहुत बढ़िया।
Can I clap आशु भाई?
You're listening to Dime a Dozen Films podcast. Namaskar, Adab, Sat Sri Akal, and hello to all our listeners and hello to my co-panelists Ashu Trikha, Sandeep Padi, and today Gaurav Sethi is joining us after a break. Today's topic is going to be one where there's going to be very little objectivity. There's going to be a lot of love. There's going to be a lot of admiration for this man. And we want our listeners to bear with us if we go a little over the top, because I think for this gentleman, it's allowed. We're going to talk about Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. He just celebrated his 81st birthday. And this is our humble tribute to a man who at 81 is still going strong. There are absolutely no signs of him stopping, much to our delight. And we're going to talk about how he's affected our lives, how his cinema has affected our lives, and anything else that we want to speak about this man who is a bhandar of talent, as they say. So welcome to this podcast. Hello, Ashuji. How are you?
I'm good, Nalini. How are you doing? Hello, Sandeep. Hello, Gaurav. And a special hello to all the listeners and thank you for being with us and being loyal to this podcast. And hopefully we will cater to information which is interesting and intriguing for you, entertaining as well. And we look forward to your feedback as well.
Hello, Sandeep. Hello, Gaurav. How are both of you?
Hello Nalini ji. Hello Ashu ji. Hi Gaurav bhai. Glad to be back again. And the icing on the cake being we are talking about my absolute favorite topic related to cinema. So yeah, look forward to a fun conversation like we always have.
Absolutely. Listeners, I can't wait to hear from Sandeep Padi and Gaurav Sethi. I'm sure Ashuji is also waiting with bated breath to hear from these two people who are the craziest fans of Mr. Bachchan that we know. I'm sure there are many out there. So, hello, Gaurav. How was your day?
Hi Ratnam, I had a great day, and hi Ashu bhai, hi Sandeep bhai, and hi to all the listeners. I'm thrilled to be here, and yes, अभी बच्चन की बात शुरू हो रही है तो थोड़ा शर्माने लगा हूँ।
मैंने सोचा बहुत एक्साइटेड हो गए।
हाँ यार, अब जिससे आप बहुत ज्यादा प्यार करते हो ना तो उसके लिए थोड़ा आप अजीब से जोन में चले जाते हो।
Sethi, when we decided to do this podcast, I was just thinking, बच्चन साहब के बारे में बोलने के समय कहाँ से शुरू करें और कहाँ से खत्म करें? ये तो कोई अंत ही नहीं है ना।
बच्चन साहब के लिए तो जहाँ से आप बोलना शुरू करेंगे लाइन वहीं से शुरू हो जाएगी ना।
मुझे पता था आप ही बोलोगे। Well said. Sandeep, I want to ask you, what are your first absolute memories of this gentleman who came into your life via the big screen? And how did he affect you? Did he affect your life in any way? Did he affect your taste for cinema in any way?
Okay, let's see. Like you rightly pointed out, Nalini, that when it comes to Bachchan, where does one start and how long does one keep talking about him? So, मुझे याद नहीं है किसका quote है, but somebody has mentioned that a true map of the world would have to be the exact size of the world itself. So similarly, a true description of this absolutely magnificent persona called Bachchan would drag up to how many hours of years, right from 1969-72 till now that he has worked. So since we don't have all that time, I'll go back to the very first time, because you asked what has been Bachchan's impact on me, right? He was my introduction to cinema.
Interesting.
Okay, and it is very interesting because so I am a 90s kid, right? So I was 5 or 6 when of 6 probably when around 93, 92 is when my uncle, who's a die-hard Bachchan fan, took me to watch one of his movies. Okay, and these were obviously reruns, and in our town we had a lot of these reruns happening at around that time. So I am slightly confused whether it was Hera Pheri or Dawn, because my memory has him in that dapper suit, looking suave and cool. So it could be either of these films, but it was one of them for sure. And then subsequently it became kind of a routine, because every Sunday these used to be the morning shows, and my uncle was a diehard film buff, and he would have been watching these films for probably the 20th time. But regardless, I just asked him to take me along, and he did. I grew up in a family where watching movies was never looked down upon. I mean, we discussed films at home and all that. And then subsequently watching every Sunday after Sunday a Bachchan film on screen, right? So all of his 70s or 80s films, I have seen them on the big screen. And I was just sad. Imagine this adolescent me sitting there looking at this dynamic personality on screen, and these typically used to be your dishum action masala films. So initially that was also an attraction, because there used to be a lot of fights and a lot of dialogue bazi. For me, that was my gateway into cinema. And if I might call myself a cinephile today, now I've seen hundreds of films across multiple languages, all of that. But the gateway was Bachchan. That's where it all started. And unlike my peers, if I don't know, it's a very interesting what if I had watched the Khans or the other stuff that was coming out in 90s, I am not really sure my love for cinema would be what it is today, because I did not like any of most of the films that were made in the 90s. Because once you get that, it's like the crack addict, right? Once you get to see Bachchan, and then everything else is like, okay, some love story, some melodrama. No. And I used to keep going back to his film. So that was my absolute initiation into this world of cinema. And I'm glad that it happened through Bachchan.
Sandeep, if I may ask you, which aspect of Mr. Bachchan on the big screen particularly inspired you or attracted you? I mean, yes, personality, yes, the films, you're saying that. But what was it about him that you found so mesmerizing that till date you are putting him a notch above so many other actors? And I'm going to ask you also, because I know that you've watched a lot of world cinema and you're a cinephile in the true sense. I want to ask you whether all the films that you've seen in different languages, regional cinema, overseas, different languages, French, where would you put Mr. Amitabh Bachchan? At which position?
So that would be difficult for me to answer, Nalini, because when I look at any of the other greats in any language, right, there are the good performances, there are the bad performances. Like I was telling you earlier, I absolutely love the old Hindi cinema, the stars of that age as well, including, and also the old Hollywood. You have your Bogarts and Cary Grants and James Cagney's of the world. So I have absolute admiration for all of them. But for me, Bachchan is not objective. It is very subjective when I look at him. And if I have to put it in words, it's probably because whenever I see his movies, and again, when I keep saying his movies, it is of a particular time period only, which we will discuss later. The vintage Bachchan of 70s, 80s, early 90s, one or two films probably. It brings back that child in me who did not look at films in terms of absolute quality, or because see, if you see a lot of these films, right, many of them might be uneven at places. Some of them might not have dated, but it brings back the child in me when I watch, and I keep revisiting these films every once in a while. And I'm instantly transported to a different age and time in my life. And I just watch it mesmerized. even now. And just yesterday I was watching or rewatching Do or the Panch for probably, I don't know how much it would be a 30th visit or something. But I am watching that. I am that 10-year-old in my head. And although subjectively, I must say that Do or the Panch has one of the best Bachchan performances. It's not easy to be out and out crazy and deliver a performance like that. But I can't rate him. It's not possible. But what I found most attractive then, and I still find when I see recently there was the retrospective as well, is that to me it appeared like the big screen was invented to capture this personality who would not fit into anything lesser than a 70 mm. The 70 mm was made for him, and the Dolby digital technology was almost an afterthought when people realized that this voice needed the technology to upgrade to match up to him. So yeah, those were primarily the initial attractions. The acting and other things we'll discuss, I'm sure.
Spoken like a true fan, that the 70 mm screen was discovered or created for Mr. Bachchan. Never have truer words been spoken, really. All right, Gaurav, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Yes.
But before Gaurav starts, I have to do it, Nalini ji. Since Sandeep mentioned about Dor to Panch, every time that song comes into my mind, I have to do it. तूने मुझे देखा नहीं देखा है तो जाना नहीं जाना है तो माना नहीं मुझे पहचाना नहीं दुनिया दीवानी मेरी मेरे पीछे पीछे भागी किसका है दम यहाँ ठहरे जो मेरे आगे आना नहीं देखो टकराना नहीं किसी से भी यार नहीं हम मतलब वो ए 4 सुरों के अंदर पूरा मुखड़ा खत्म है और सारा दिमाग में रह जाता है और फिर भी कितना फन है सो आई सेड ये 2 और 2 5 की बात की है संदीप ने तो ये बोलना ही पड़ेगा
And
Sorry,
absolutely, that is the most lasting memory, right? और स्कूल में इतना मजा आता था कि because ये बैठ गया था मेरे दिमाग में, so I used to just go and sing it out in front of my friends and
हाँ
then become breathless and they're like, अरे कौन सी फिल्म है ये, कब आई है, ये
हाँ
बहुत साल पहले आई है, देख लो.
हाँ
Wow. Can I clap, Ashu bhai?
बहुत बढ़िया, आशु जी।
मतलब उसका आगे है ना फूलों की राहों से कांटों कांटों को हटा दे हम वो हैं जो 2 और 2 5 बना दे अब इसलिए सुर चेंज हो गया पहले वाले से वो तो अलग सुर में था बट मतलब 2 और 2 5 बोला किसी ने और ये गाना दिमाग में आया this is how the recollection of this film was and I just couldn't stop myself the moment Sandeep said मैंने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले 2 और 2 5 देखी और मेरे दिमाग में चालू हो गया तूने मुझे देखा नहीं देखा है तो जाना नहीं बोला वाह वेरी गुड
बहुत बढ़िया आशु जी, बहुत ही बढ़िया। 2 और 2 5 की अगर बात निकली है तो मैं बता दूं उसका फर्स्ट हाफ तो अनमैचेबल है, एब्सोल्युटली. It's almost a perfect film in the first half. All right, Gaurav, over to you for your impressions about Mr. Bachchan. I know you're a die-hard fan, so let's go. Let us hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I'll just try to bring some sense into what I'm going to say now, because I think Bachchan Saab has kind of overpowered all my senses for the longest time. So I think Bachchan Saab, for me personally speaking, which of course is for a lot of people millions, and I think I realized that much later that I'm too small and too insignificant in terms of sometimes you feel कि अच्छा यार Bachchan Saab तो फिर मेरे से ज्यादा बड़ा कोई फैन हो नहीं सकता है, लेकिन फिर आप मिलते हो दुनिया से तो पता चलता है कि यार आप तो बहुत ही छोटे फैन हो, आपकी तो गिनती भी नहीं है कहीं. एंड वो है बच्चन साहब की एवरीबडी वांट्स टू have a piece and have a picture with him. In terms of cinema, the first film I saw of him was I think I'm right in recalling it was Abhiman.
Wow, what an introduction to Amitabh Bachchan through Abhiman being your first memory. Wow.
Yeah, and I think I was maybe 9 or 10, because I saw it on the TV, and I had peculiar scenes which stayed with me. So when I came to Bombay, I had zero knowledge of films. I had probably seen only 5 films in my life, 10 films maybe, and I just wanted to be a part of the film business and a film understanding, and understanding how something so remote to me can influence me so much. That was the quest. That was the curiosity.
तो गौरव, जब आप 9-10 साल के थे तो आपने अभिमान देखी, आपने टेलीविजन पे देखी, ठीक है? उस वक्त आप इतने भी छोटे नहीं थे कि आपको याद नहीं होगा कि आपके थ्रू इमोशंस कैसे, बिकॉज इट्स अ वेरी अडल्ट काइंड ऑफ अ फिल्म ना। तो आपको कैसी लगी, मतलब आपके दिमाग में क्या चल रहा था जब आप अभिमान देख रहे थे, जिसने आपके ऊपर इतना असर किया है कि आप आज भी अभिमान का नाम ले रहे हो?
See, one was, of course, the music,
Hmm.
because it was, and the film is revolving around music. The film is evolved about, two singers, and so that is that premise or everything is something which is very close to, because I music is something which is very close personal experience for me. So I think that was the one thing. And as a 10-year-old, when we see sometimes our parents fight, sometimes they have misunderstandings, and as a child you're always wanting them to patch up. So when that film came, when they were kind of separating,
Hmm.
she's gone to the village and Bachchan Saab is not, that abhiman, so to say, a man's pride. So for me, somewhere their situation was so purely, and that's where the class of Rishida was. That situation somehow I could put it together just the way, if my parents had a fight and I want them to patch up, I wanted these guys to patch up in the film.
Hmm.
So it became so deep an experience watching that movie. Then much later, the acting nuances and things like that, which I feel is okay, in terms of course, there's no, I'm too small or insignificant to, talk about his acting or praise his acting.
Hmm.
This scene is very peculiarly, I remember. So this situation is basically inside the cinema hall where they've come probably for something. So Bachchan Saab is signing some autographs. Just then, just behind her, Jaya ji enters. I actually, when I talk about Abhiman, I don't like to call them Amitabh Bachchan and Jaya Bachchan. Like to call them Sukhbir Kumar and Uma Devi. That was their character names. So she enters, and basically the people who are taking autographs from Bachchan Saab, they snatch away their autograph book, and they approach Uma Devi. And then the shot of him coming and sitting on that chair, it's a low angle shot. And for a moment, he's allowing that moment to kind of, I mean, the moment has kind of dawned upon him, but he's trying to live with it. And there's a slight movement of, how he kind of brings his hand towards his face as he's kind of in that zone. I don't know why that image or that 2-3 seconds, they, they had some, I couldn't understand, I just couldn't understand certain expressions you just don't understand. And maybe that's where the magic is, that you just don't get it. And I think, yeah, that's one moment or one image of Bachchan Saab that has etched. So personally speaking, the action part and all those things, much later, the entertaining part I got connected to. But the Bachchan Saab that was captured by Rishida in Anand, in Namak Haram, in Milli, in Abhiman, I fell in love with Bachchan. I still fall in, and I mean, for me, my love for Bachchan is because of those films.
Hmm.
It's not for the masala entertainers or the angry young man.
Hmm.
It's for that subtle inner conflict of a man so huge as him.
Right.
That's where my love for Bachchan started.
Okay, I'm going to circle back to you, and I'm just going over to Ashu ji. आशु जी, आप हमें बताएं ना, बच्चन साहब आपके लिए क्या मायने रखते हैं और आपकी पहली यादें?
तो मेरा कहना, मैं मेरी इनिशियल डेज जो थे, ऑल्दो मैं फिल्म्स में काम करना शुरू कर चुका था. आई स्टार्टेड वर्किंग इन फिल्म इंडस्ट्री वे बैक इन 1978. दैट लुक्स लाइक अनदर एरा ऑल टुगेदर. बट in the earlier days of watching film, and also learning as a technician कि फिल्म में क्या हो रहा है क्या नहीं. But जब मैं, as completely opposite to what Gaurav has experienced, I was still a fan. I was still a common cinegoer. I was still somebody who wanted to get entertained and enjoyed films. And to me, Bachchan Saab's films, the men who introduced Bachchan Saab to me was Manmohan Desai, Prakash Mehra, and their films. And I enjoyed those films. The way he was presented, the way he played a common man, his voice, his persona, the way he would stand in front of the camera, the way he would deliver his dialogues. People would say कि uh, शराब पी करके परफॉर्मेंस करना अमित जी से सीखे हो, किस तरीके से मतलब एक दारू पिया हुआ कैरेक्टर किस तरीके से डायलॉग बोलेगा, वो सारी चीजें बहुत देर बाद जब अमित जी का ऐसा लगा कि ही इज ट्रांजिटिंग फ्रॉम द मेन हीरो इनटू द अदर, और जब अमित जी भी तारीफ करना शुरू कर दी थी शाहरुख की, आमिर की, सलमान की, तो यंगर जनरेशन में से दे बिकम स्टार्स इन दिस, मेरे दिमाग में कभी आया ही नहीं कि अमित जी को छोड़ करके कोई और स्टार हो सकता है। मेरे दिमाग में हमेशा यही चलता रहा कि आज भी अमित जी स्टार है, आज भी अमित जी के साथ में काम कर लो और आप जो है वो पार हो जाओ। मेरा क्या कहना है कि मैंने जो चीजें देखी है, जब इतना इंसान काम कर लेता है, जब इंडस्ट्री को अपने अंदर जज्ब कर लेता है, और जब आपको लोग इंडस्ट्री मानना शुरू कर देते हैं, तब क्या रह जाता आपको प्रेजेंट करने के लिए, दिखाने के लिए? What is going to be your approach at that point of time towards films? But when you see Amit ji perform, every time he's on screen, it feels like he's doing this film for the first time. वो जो भूख है वो आज भी दिखती at the age of 81. He doesn't take anything for granted. There is something called timeless art. When I say timeless art, मतलब क्या होता है कि हर इंसान की परफॉर्मेंसेस जो हैं वो उस जेनरेशन में, उस एरा में, उस टाइम के लिए बहुत अच्छी लगती है। Amit ji's performances has crossed all generation and time, and he's timeless in his performance. What you see in the 70s and what you see now, you still feel he's evolving, he's wanting to evolve, that hunger to come in front of the camera and perform to the way which he himself may feel satisfied, which I have seen personally also. It is amazing to hold on to the craft with so much greed for such a long period of time. And that is why the craft keeps paying you back. You don't see Amit ji's film and you say, देख लिया, हो गया, सब हो गया ना, अब क्या है? वही चीज परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं, वही रिपीट हो रहा है, वही सारी जो आप बहुत सारे एक्टर्स के साथ देखते हो, बहुत सारे हीरोज के साथ देखते हो। अमित जी के साथ आप नहीं बोल सकते हो कि सब देख लिया, क्योंकि अमित जी कुछ ना कुछ नया लेके आते हैं हर बार, कुछ ऐसा प्रेजेंटेशन करते हैं हर बार कि आपको समझ में नहीं आता ये क्या नया है। और मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि जहां पे हीरोज को फीमेल ऑडियंसेस बहुत पसंद किया करती थी, ये एक एक्टर, एक हीरो आया जिसको मेल जेंडर बहुत पसंद करता था। एंग्री यंग मैन वाला जो वो लुक लेकर के आए थे, इसमें सलीम जावेद का भी हाथ बहुत ज्यादा है। जो वो लुक लेकर के आए थे एंग्री यंग मैन का, जो लोगों ने एक्सेप्ट करके, they were waiting for him to pounce, they were waiting for him to get angry, they were waiting for him to do action, वो सारी चीजें ना मेरे दिमाग में छपी हुई पड़ी है। तो मतलब बहुत कुछ है अमित जी का जो आज भी दिमाग से निकलता नहीं है, और ये मानने को दिल नहीं करता कि अमित जी को छोड़ करके दूसरा और कोई स्टार बन सकता है। So for me, everything about him on screen, whether it's his voice, whether it's his, मतलब अगर कैमरा में आकर के खड़े भी हो जाए ना, तो भी आपका नजर नहीं हटे। फिर डायलॉग्स थे, किस तरीके से डायलॉग बोलना, उनके पॉजेस कहाँ पे आते हैं, उनके एम्फोसिस कैसे आते हैं, that it's an institution that you can keep revisiting over and over and over again, and keep learning on what to do. And one of the biggest inspiration is how do you approach your own craft, your own job, your own work. How much ever experience you may have, do not take yourself for granted, or do not take your work for granted. Keep giving it, and it will then pay back to you. So for me, I mean, it's too early to say a lot of things about Amit ji. Eventually we will talk. और जैसे मैं बोलता हूँ कि आज हम लोग सूरज को दिया दिखाने की हिमाकत कर रहे हैं, बट दैट्स व्हाट इट इज। अमित जी इज अमित जी।
सही है। वही मैं दोबारा से यही सोच रही हूँ कि कहाँ शुरू करें। मुझे लग रहा है कि हम सबको इतनी मुश्किल हो रही है कि हम बात कहाँ से शुरू करें और ख़त्म कहाँ पे करें, बिकॉज ये शख्सियत ऐसी है अमिताभ बच्चन की। तो मैं अपने जो मेमोरीज हैं मैं आप थोड़ा सा आपसे शेयर करूंगी और फिर I would like to go back to Sandeep and Gaurav and to you, Ashuji. You know, there was a time when, first of all, I'd just like to tell you all that I've seen all his films, his flops included. I may not have seen all of them when they came, but I have seen. But I'll tell you something, I was madly in love with Rajesh Khanna. Absolutely. I was crazy about him. And then there's this film Anand, which comes in 1969. And then, you know, you're watching this film, you can't take your eyes off Rajesh Khanna, but there is this tall, lanky actor with the most deep set eyes who in the film does not know half the time what to do with his arms. And he is pulling your attention towards him. I mean, his role as Bhaskar Banerjee, and I can't forget it. I cannot forget it. Every time I watch Anand, and I must have seen Anand at least more than 200 times, it is a film that is never boring. Every time I notice something new, every time I look at Mr. Bachchan, I want to just, मुझे लगता है कि वो पी लें, you know, उनकी जो performance भी नहीं कहनी चाहिए, because he lived that role. And I was so impressed with him in Anand, and he stayed in my mind from that time. And then I also, you know, there is a film I think very few people have seen of Mr. Bachchan. And there are quite a few films, 4 or 5 films before he became this major star, where he's played negative roles. There was a film called Parwana. There's a film called Gehri Chal. There was also a film, interestingly, it's called Raste Ka Patthar, in which Shatrughan Sinha, him, and there was a new girl, Neeta Khayani. I don't know what happened to her. वो फिल्म जो रास्ते का पत्थर है ना, संदीप, आशु जी और गौरव, इट इज, जब आप मैंने बहुत पहले देखी थी, अब जब पॉडकास्ट करने के समय मैंने उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा पढ़ा to just refresh my memory. It's taken from that old Shirley MacLaine film called The Apartment, that plot. And when I was reading that, then I went back and I thought that, and then I got together a few clips to watch of Bachchan Saab, and he's so different from an angry young man or from Bhaskar Banerjee. In this, he's shy. He's playing like Life in a Metro. He's playing Sharman Joshi's part. Basically, it's Life in a Metro all those years ago. And he's shy and he's uncomfortable. So मैंने इसके clips निकाल के देखे YouTube पे, and you can make out that the man is being very sincere in what he's doing. He's not very comfortable because the film was very tacky. But there is not a film, you can see his flop films, you can see his successful films. कोई ऐसी film नहीं है जहाँ पे बच्चन साहब को देखने का मन नहीं करता. I want to say there are so many all-time favorites of mine of Bachchan Saab, but the film that I keep revisiting and revisiting and revisiting is Trishul. I cannot get over that film. The plot, the story, his performance, his dialogues, of course, Kader Khan, and as Ashuji has said, Salim Javed, and all his directors had a great role to play in his success. But एक वो भी तो बात होती है ना कि जैसे आप लोगों में से किसी ने कहा था पिछले एक पॉडकास्ट में, शायद संदीप ने कहा था कि लाइन को डिलीवर भी तो करना पड़ता है. लिख ली है लाइन, उसको किस तरीके से डिलीवर करना है. ये बच्चन साहब ऐसी खूबी है, मतलब चुपके चुपके. और I can go on and on and on as to how his films have humongous repeat value for me. जो मारधाड़ वाली फिल्म्स हैं उनमें से जंजीर और दीवार और ये सब तो हैं ही, और भी ऐसी फिल्म्स हैं जैसे आज का अर्जुन and all, which I'll never go back and watch again. They were blockbuster hits. Like I can watch Amar Akbar Anthony, I don't know how many times. They are not boring. Bachchan Saab as a performer is not boring. As we speak and as we go along, more and more of his talents will come. But I just wanted to say कि बच्चन साहब की फिल्में, जैसे आज मैंने आखिरी रास्ता दोबारा देखी और मुझे याद आया, और I wanted to share this with you all कि वो जो डायलॉग है ना जवान में, बाप बाप होता है, बेटा बेटा होता है. You know, when I was watching आखिरी रास्ता today, and I was smiling to myself and thinking that ये बहुत पहले, without saying the dialogue, Bachchan Saab in so many of his films, but especially in आखिरी रास्ता, he's lived that. His role was written like that, but without saying it, it's like all the action, all the emotion, his eyes, his persona, the way he walks. He's an old man and he's competing with his much younger son, but everything that he's saying there is baap baap hota hai, beta beta hota hai. Okay, I'm going to come to Sandeep. What I wanted to ask you was that in his career graph, one thing that struck me was that right from the beginning of his career till 2022, 2023, there are so many films which have not done well at the box office. What do you think is the secret that Bachchan Saab is still working, is still being offered roles, despite what the box office result of his films are going to be? Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, so see, it is easier to answer considering a post 2010 phase because definitely by 2010 his legend was established, and he had a variety of roles available that people could pick from, right? So somebody is writing a melodramatic role, he had a reference of Bachchan doing it. Somebody is writing something in comedy, he had a reference of Bachchan doing it. Action, whatever you think of, right? But the root of this again lies in the 70s, because I think unlike most actors or stars, let's say, okay, actors again becomes a very wide net, but unlike most stars who stuck to what they were doing and what was working and what they were known for, imagine this is 1975 and coming on the back of Sholay, and before that Zanjeer, Bachchan gives Diwar, which is, which takes his career somewhere else. In 76, with the same director, he does Kabhi Kabhi, which is nothing like Diwar. And if you even look at the year 75, 75 or 7, I think 75 only, yeah, right? He does Chupke Chupke, a small role. That's a film that is headlined by Dharmendra, but look at the kind of role that he did there.
It's such an impactful role.
It is. And he says that Karela, Karola, that still stays, right? And that shows his variation. So by the time he entered into the 80s, while there was a big chunk of films that had this larger than life Bachchan in them, there were also sufficient films to showcase that he could pull off Anand, Namak Haram, Saudagar, which is one film of his that I admired much later.
That's one of my favorite films, Saudagar.
Absolutely. Yeah. The first time I watched it on DD as a kid, I cried. I said, this cannot be Bachchan. I refused to believe. I was in that mode, but I appreciated it later on. So the whole point is that when any director looks back, they see that he has done it all. It is up to the writer now to say कि इस genre में बच्चन ने क्या नहीं किया है, rather than saying कि ये genre बच्चन ने नहीं किया है. He has shown the whole gamut. Actually, if you look at it, even the larger than life persona that he is so known for, right? The Salim Javed Bachchan is very different from a Prakash Mehra Bachchan.
Yes.
Right? The Salim Javed Bachchan is much more angry. The Prakash Mehra Bachchan is more emotional.
The Prakash Mehra Bachchan is very self-pitying mode. Mukaddar Ka Sikandar. And
for me, Mukaddar Ka Sikandar is the best Devdas that has been made in cinema, because unlike the Devdas from the original text, he is not dysfunctional. He's a functioning person. He's not an alcoholic. He doesn't wallow in self-pity, but there is a pain. So that different kinds of emotions that he got to do in the Prakash Mehra universe, Sharabi and things like that. And then Manmohan Desai Bachchan was again very different, because Manmohan Desai did not believe in one emotion. That was proper masala cinema, right? In one scene, he could be joking alongside Jeevan, was it, when he says कि ऐसा आदमी दो ही time भागता है, Olympic का race हो या police का case हो. In the very next scene, romance Parveen Babi, and 2 scenes after that have that emotional outburst in the church when Nazir Hussain, he finds a dead body.
Yeah.
Right. So these are very different Bachchans even then. And now add in the Rishikesh Mukherjee, Basu Chatterjee Bachchan into it. There's just a whole range of films and different kinds of performances he did. So anyone in the future, even now, if somebody sits and wants to write a script, he'd have a reference to say that, yes, he has done it. I can make him take it forward. So I think that's the secret to his longevity, that he has done it all.
I think when Bachchan Saab did comedy, it didn't take the hero out of him. The hero remained intact. And the same goes to Dharmender ji also. So I think that's a deadly combination which Bachchan Saab had.
Yeah, he's deadly when it came to comedy. Agreed. Bachchan Saab became so big, the whole nation absolutely crazy about this man. But there is one thing where I think Sandeep will also help us in understanding that in my memory, there is no Hindi film actor or star that has impacted regional fans. What do you think made him so huge in South India?
So Nalini, I don't think I can speak with any authority, and I'm not even sure his films had that much of an impact in Tamil Nadu. But what I can say with absolute certainty is that his films had a major impact on the cinema that came out of Telugu, Tamil, and Kannada cinema, at least in the subsequent decades. And the reason for that is the two big stars, or let's say even the one big star, right? Taleva, Rajnikant. We all know the kind of legend he is. And in 80s, when the legend of Rajnikant was being built, and he acknowledges it to this day, is that many of his big hits were remakes of Bachchan films.
Yeah.
There were, of course, other films on which he initially became a star, right? The Balchandra films and then the S.P. Muthuraman films, they were there. But the big hits like Billa,
Dawn.
And then there are many others, including Basha.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many of you have seen Basha, but Basha was
I've seen
a huge hit. Adjusted for inflation and all of that, it could probably be Rajini's biggest hit. Right. But if you look at Basha, apart from the fact that they did a master stroke of making it a non-linear narrative, the core idea is basically hum. And even today, this hero flashback moment or the transformation scene is a very big deal. A lot of big heroes do it. Like as recent as you pick a film in from last 2 years back, you will find a film like that, right? Almost every hero has done it. And the masala cinema template, which Hindi cinema forgot. First, we made it badly in the mid to late 80s, and then we forgot about it. But the Telugu Tamil film industry they held on to that and they built on it, right? And that is how stars are made. And what is the genesis of that masala cinema? The genesis of that is your Salim Javed, your Kader Khan writing for Bachchan. So he has a tremendous impact. Now what is happening is that what we had forgotten, what the Hindi cinema had forgotten, rather they are picking it from Telugu and Tamil films. Actually, if you dig a little further, the origin lies in Hindi cinema itself.
So I don't know which era that was, but when Bachchan Saab became a phenomenon here, he made inroads he created and he had so many fans in South India. It was crazy. Of course, not like Rajni sir or even Mammootty, but he has a very loyal fan following in the South. And how did that come about? It came about before Rajnikant made all those films, which were copies of Bachchan Saab's films. And they used to see them in South India and go crazy about them. This I remember. Now, if you ask me which year and whatever, I will not. But as far as my knowledge goes and as far as my feedback is that he is the only actor from Hindi cinema to have such a loyal fan following in South India.
So one of the reasons could be that the industry in Tamil Nadu was pretty big. And actually, Telugu, Tamil, all the industries were centered based out of Chennai at that point of time. So a lot of the films that Bachchan even made in Hindi were produced or directed by somebody like a Purn Chandra Rao or somebody like these kind of producers, right? So that could be one of the reasons. But what I can say with absolute authority is that his impact on the cinema coming from there for next 2-3 decades is definitely there, and it's a huge impact.
Yeah.
So actually, while I was just listening to Sandeep Bhai and you, I was just trying to understand it myself that why Bachchan, suddenly, because see, when Bachchan came, it was the era of romance.
Yes.
I think throughout when we look at Bachchan's career, Bachchan, except for a Silsila or a Kabhi Kabhi, I think, which of course didn't work, Bachchan didn't care about the girl in the film. He never went after the girl. Only a few very, very handful films that the film was revolving around Bachchan going for the girl. And I think that an average Indian man could relate to him.
Except in the comedy films like Chupke Chupke and Amar Akbar Anthony, where he pursued
Yeah,
the
but I'm
girl.
saying these films didn't make him.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think that was where the common thread of an Indian male, which was across all states and everywhere, that connect came, because otherwise all the other film stars, they had to become a film star by following a girl, impressing a girl, singing for the girl, running around this and that. It was all about impressing the girl, most of the cinema for the longest time. And I think that's where the whole, the thought of, why male made the Bachchan fan, because the males could connect to that part, wherein I think average Indian male doesn't know how to talk to a girl, doesn't know how to talk to a woman. I think, which is, as you were discussing, that thought came. I think if we really look back to his career, maybe 3 or 4 films where he's cared about the girl or went, that is his singular motive in the film. It's hardly been there, and those films never worked. I think, Ratnam, the initial 7, 8 films which he worked in.
Absolutely, I was going to say that.
Yeah, Ashubhai, what do you say?
हाँ तो मुझे ये लगता है ना कि अमित जी का पर्सोना ऐसा हो गया था ना कि एज अ हीरो everybody looked up to him, and somehow I think even the characters within the film looked up at his character with some kind of reverence, and that you can see through whether it is the writer who looked up to this character with reverence and said यार ये अमित जी को अगर देना है तो अमित जी को तो कम से कम ये देना पड़ेगा, इसके बिना कैसे होगा। वो पर्सोना पे हीरोइंस जो है दे विल गो आफ्टर दिस कैरेक्टर। अमित जी's character is too big to go after a heroine.
Yeah.
That is what made it slightly different. So I'll tell you what happens is, पहले इंसान कहानी लिखता है, फिर कहानी लिखने के बाद जब एक्टर फाइनल होता है तो फिर उसके हिसाब से कहानी में, डायलॉग्स में उसका अप्रोच जो है वो थोड़ा चेंज होता है कि अब ये वाला रोल ये एक्टर परफॉर्म करने वाला है तो उसको हमको जस्टिस देना पड़ेगा, तो लाइनें उस हिसाब से हो जाती, कैरेक्टराइजेशन उस हिसाब से हो जाता है, छोटी छोटी चीजों में फर्क आना शुरू हो जाता है, और इसीलिए शायद वो रेवरेंस दिखता है जहां पे he doesn't go after the girl goes after him, because that's the magnetic characteristic that Amit ji's character presents, कि जो होता है उस फिल्म के इर्द गिर्द वो सब उस कैरेक्टर के नजदीक जाता है, इट बिकम्स इंटरेस्टिंग। मुझे और एक चीज बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग लगी अमित जी के करियर ग्राफ में, एंड मे बी इट्स अ गुड आइडिया दैट I will propose, I want to know what do you think. Amit ji's had some very interesting combinations in his career, where he's done work with Shatru Saab, he's done work with Shashi Kapoor, where he's done work with Vinod Khanna, where he's done work with Rishi Kapoor. ये combinations भी बड़े interesting combinations होते थे, जहां पे एक कहानी को प्रेजेंट करने का तरीका होता था, मल्टी हीरो हो जाता था, बट कितना इंटरेस्टिंग होता है when you pit two actors against each other, even Dharamji and Amitji together, that it becomes, from the audience point of view, it becomes so much more fun to see. What do you guys think about such combinations that have happened?
Ashuji, you've taken the words out of my mouth. This is what I wanted to speak about his career, that he's had many combinations, be it with Rishi Kapoor or Shatrughan Sinha or Vinod Khanna, or even more than that. So, Sandeep, would you like to elaborate on that? What do you think about Ashuji's point? Because this is something I wanted to discuss about him.
Yeah, and apart from the fact that बचपन में मल्टी हीरो फिल्म देख के बहुत मजा आता था, the fact remains कि like suddenly with having Vinod Khanna, Shatrughan Sinha, or my favorite co-star to pit against or with Bachchan, Shashi Kapoor ji, I used to love these kind of coming together of these heroes. And once you've cast like this, then suddenly your film's mounting increases, and it's a sad thing for Hindi cinema that in the second part of the 80s, we just overdid and ruined the multi hero casting films and all of that. But there was a fine period between mid 70s to early 80s where it was carried off really well. And kudos to all these actors to come together. Right? Was Sashi Kapoor was a senior actor when you look at Bachchan, but suddenly Bachchan's stardom became so much that. And one thing, unifying thread I see across all these films is that in most of the films, if not all, barring the ones where he's with Dharmendra and some of the early like Hera Peri with Vinod Khanna, with certain exceptions, mostly the films were slightly centered around Bachchan. Maybe because he had the persona to pull it off, and he also had become too huge then. So I don't think it was a balanced split. हाँ, वो फाइट में उस टाइम पे जो हिसाब होता था ना कि एक पंच यहाँ से आया तो दूसरा पंच यहाँ से आना चाहिए, एक डायलॉग यहाँ से आया तो एक डायलॉग वहां से आना चाहिए, all that was there. But somewhere the author backed role or the more meaty part started going to Bachchan in the late 70s itself. Even Amar Akbar Anthony, if you see, there's a scene where he gets beaten up by Vinod Khanna, but you remember that scene for Bachchan. Right, so it was interesting to see this combination in those films, but Bachchan still stood out with good help from writing.
Absolutely, and very entertaining.
उसमें लाइन था ना कि तुमने हमको बहुत मारा लेकिन हमने तुमको दो मारा लेकिन
Yes.
सॉलिड मारा ना.
Solid Maharana, yes.
आशु भाई इसी बात पे ना एक छोटा सा रत्नम वन रिक्वेस्ट, लेट्स हैव one dialogue from all of us, our favorite ones.
Yeah, you can start.
Okay, then I think the first dialogue which I remember is from Namak Haram. When he comes, Rajesh Khanna comes into the room. They have now kind of, the friendship is getting a little because वो union जाके join कर लिया उसने. So then he comes and say, अरे तू अभी भी वैसे का वैसा ही है, भोला और ये. तो बोलता है कि अपने यूनियन में जाके डायलॉग बोलियो, वहां पे बहुत तालियां मिलेंगी. उसके बाद बच्चन, he shouts and says something when Simi Garewal has entered, and he says, "Will you please shut up?" or something like that. He says, "मेरी कमजोरी का मजाक मत उड़ाओ." I don't know. It's not one of the most popular ones, or it's not one of the iconic dialogues. But
No, that scene is very impactful. The one you're describing.
such a powerhouse of a scene.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he's trying to hold back the tears in his eyes with his back is to
Yeah.
that. And he gives him those laddus in that dabba के माँ ने भेजे और बोला कि तुम एक मत खाओ, विकी को देना पूरा डब्बा.
Correct. Yeah. And otherwise, if I go with one of the popular ones, so then two types of कीड़ा in the world. एक जो फ्लिट मिलता है, दूसरा कौन सा है वो जो समाज की गंदगी से पैदा होता है.
हाँ, ये सब कादर खान जी के लिखे हुए हैं ना.
Yeah. So that's one dialogue I remember.
बहुत सारे डायलॉग्स हैं मेरे जहन में, जब भी आता है ना तो मैं कभी ये भूलती नहीं हूँ, बिकॉज हिंदी फिल्मों में पहली बार किसी ने ऐसी लाइन सुनी थी. आई टेल यू, थिएटर में ही सन्नाटा सा जैसे छाया हुआ था, उसके बाद तालियां बजी थी. वो मुझे कभी नहीं भूलता. त्रिशूल का डायलॉग है, when last confrontation scene between him and Sanjeev Kumar, and Sanjeev Kumar looks at him and says he's a defeated man, and he says कि तुम शांति को कैसे जानते हो. तो he says ना कि मैं उस शांति का बेटा हूँ मिस्टर आर.के. गुप्ता, और आप मेरे नाजायज बाप हैं. इस डायलॉग ने सनसनी मचा दी थी. I mean, people went crazy about this dialogue. So there are many dialogues of his, but yes, this one always I remember.
क्या डिलीवर किया आपने डायलॉग यार रत्नम, वाह.
अच्छा. और आप मेरे नाजायज बाप हैं, he says. Oof, so much feeling. आशु जी, आपका कोई ऐसा फेवरेट डायलॉग आप इस वक्त बोलना चाहेंगे?
तुम्हारा नाम क्या है बसंती?
आशु जी. और आशु जी वो अपना कान साफ कर रहे हैं, रुई डाल रहे हैं उस वक्त जब वो
मतलब
कह रहे हैं ये.
मतलब कितना कैजुअली डिलीवर किया हुआ लाइन brought the entire house down. And everybody, so we talk about comedy and we talk about timing of comedy and वो सीन है शोले में जहां पे वो अपने दोस्त के बारे में सारी उसकी खूबियां डिस्कस करता है।
हाँ।
मतलब उसमें से कौन सी लाइनें आप पसंद करोगे, कौन सी लाइनें निकाल दोगे कि वैसे तो बहुत अच्छा है वो, पर जब कभी कभी दारू पी लेता है ना। अच्छा, वो दारू भी पीता है? मतलब बाप रे। बट लाइक आई सेड, बहुत सारी लाइंस हैं। बट जो फिर वो आकर के कुर्सी पे बैठता है, एक पॉस्चर देता है और फिर बोलता है, विजय दीनानाथ चौहान पूरा
ओ,
नाम। मतलब मैं बताऊं, कुछ लाइनें होती हैं जो एक्टरों के लिए लिखी जाती हैं, और कुछ एक्टर्स होते हैं जो लाइनों को इमेमोरल बनाते हैं।
जी।
अमित जी जो है, उनको कोई भी लाइन दे दो एंड ही विल क्रिएट अ फिनोमिनन। मतलब वो
Yes.
अपने फादर की जो उन्होंने पोएट्री बोली थी अग्निपथ में, अग्निपथ,
उफ।
अग्निपथ, अग्निपथ, लथपथ, मतलब the way he delivers his words, the power that he has to deliver them, they all become memorable and etched in your timeline for life. कितनी लाइनें बोले। तो मैंने तो दो तीन ऐसी मस्ती में बोल दी कि तुम्हारा
हाँ।
नाम क्या बसंती, और विजय दीनानाथ चौहान पूरा नाम।
तो फिर आशु जी आप मस्ती में एक और बोलिए हमारे लिए, अगर आपको याद है तो प्लीज। आपने बहुत अच्छा मस्ती में बोला। आशु जी, अमर अकबर एंथनी में क्लाइमैक्स में ना, जब वो जिबिस्को होता है ना, उनके सामने ही खड़ा होता है आशु जी,
हाँ,
तो वो कहता है गॉड ने तुम्हें बहुत फुर्सत से बनाया,
बनाया
लेकिन जब
है।
बिगाड़ने का टाइम आएगा तो आशु जी वो बोलिए ना एक बार, बच्चन
नहीं,
साहब
मुझे
की तरह।
मुझे वो पूरी लाइनें याद, बाकी मुझे सीन याद है, मुझे पूरी तरह
Oh
से
God.
सीन याद है।
What a personality! What a personality!
मतलब अमर अकबर एंथनी में डायलॉग्स के बारे में बात करें तो बहुत है, लेकिन जो सबसे ज्यादा याद रहता है वो उनका गाना याद रहता है, माई नेम इज एंथनी
Oh yeah.
गोंजाल्विस। और उसके बीच में फिर
जी।
वो जो कुछ लाइनें बोलते हैं। बट अगेन, the other film where he talks about Vijay Merchant and Vijay Hazare, and then, you
Yeah.
know, I think that was Lavaris,
नमक नमक हलाल, नमक हलाल।
नमक हलाल।
Namak Halal.
आशु जी वो लाइन बोलिए, the coefficient of the linear is just a position of the hemoglobin of the pressure, atmospheric pressure of the country.
मतलब वो कुछ भी बोल देंगे उसमें सेंस लगेगा कि यार ये सच्ची कुछ बोला है।
हाँ
उसी में वो विंस्टन चर्चिल की भी लाइन बोलते हैं ना,
हाँ।
another stanza that he's just a sophisticated rhetorician intoxicated by the exuberance of his own
Of you.
verbosity.
Yeah.
तो फिर verbosity खींचते हैं।
आशु जी अभी आपने वो नमक हलाल वाला बोला ना, तो उसके बारे में आपको 100% पता होगा। संदीप ट्रिविया का राजा है, तो उसको तो पता ही होगा। बट आशु जी वो जब पूरा क्रिकेट का बोल रहे थे ना, विजय मर्चेंट, विजय हजारे, वो सारा इम्प्रोव, कोई लिखा नहीं, अपने आप खुद किया इन्होंने। There was not a single word written on paper. That was the first day of shooting of Namak Halal, and he just made all that up as he went along. What kind of a talent is that, Ashuji?
Oh my God, that has to be something phenomenal. And you know, at that point of time, if you realize there weren't too many people who spoke English like he did on screen.
Yes.
And he would come up with such aura when he spoke about whether he spoke, so उनका तो ये है ना कि कमांड ओवर लैंग्वेज, चाहे वो हिंदी बोले चाहे वो इंग्लिश बोले। और हिंदी बोलेंगे तो शुद्ध हिंदी बोलेंगे, उसमें उर्दू नहीं आएगा। और
जी।
अगर इंग्लिश बोलेंगे तो शुद्ध इंग्लिश बोलेंगे, उसमें इंग्लिश जो है उसका प्रोनाउंसिएशन, उसका मतलब you can probably open up a dictionary and check whether the pronunciation is right or not, and his pronunciation will be bang on.
Absolutely.
So his knowledge of the language and the power of delivering those lines is what makes it enchanting, it's enticing,
Yeah.
mesmerizing for you to sit down and watch it. It's fabulous. तो ये जो हर बार वो एक नया पहलू खोलते हैं over a period of time। तो आपने एक बार पूछा कि ऐसा क्या था कि अमित जी जो है वो, उनकी पिक्चरें नहीं भी चलती हैं तो भी वो लोग उनको एक्सेप्ट करते हैं। वो
जी।
इसलिए एक्सेप्ट करते हैं उनको क्योंकि he has gone beyond and bigger than the film. He has gone into the hearts of the audiences who are willing to give him another opportunity because they love him as an actor, and they think that the film has failed him. He has not failed in the film.
Yeah. Ashuji, do you remember the time you saw Namak Halal? I remember I saw it night show. Ashuji, he has done comedy before. He has, but in which film did he play a buffoon while dancing? The little love, little love. And he's doing that funny dance. You know, you have to be so confident as an actor. I can't forget that with all that. वो जो कौन सा गाना है वो आशु जी प्लीज बताएं ना.
ये पग घुंघरू
रू
बांध
हाँ
मीरा नाची थी और
हाँ
हम नाचे बिन घुंघरू के पग घुंघरू बांध मीरा नाची थी वो तीर भला किस काम का है जो तीर निशाने से चूके 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 रे के पग घुंघरू
ओह
तो
वाह 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 आशु जी वाह वाह. और आशु जी नमक हलाल में ही जब वो परवीन बाबी का कैबरे होता है एंड ही डजंट वांट शशि कपूर टू ड्रिंक, तो पीछे से वो क्या कर रहे हैं आपको याद है? मतलब ये भूलती नहीं है सीन्स मुझे.
हाँ
All actors are kids, basically. I mean, it's a saying. So I think Bachchan Saab that way is, with such 6 feet 2 inch, itna bada persona, and when he does this childlike things, na, वो अलग ही लेवल का लगता है.
हाँ और सेठी वो नमक हलाल में वो जो ओ जूली ओ शीला ओ रानो जमालो वो गाना उन्होंने क्या किया है उसमें. मतलब आई कांट बिलीव दैट वाज कोरियोग्राफ्ड.
बट हम लोग जो है ना बात करते हैं विद हिज केमिस्ट्री विद रिस्पेक्ट टू हिज पियर्स, चाहे वो शत्रु जी हो, चाहे विनोद खन्ना हो, चाहे ऋषि कपूर हो, चाहे शशि कपूर हो, मतलब अलग अलग जो लोग हैं. बट नमक हलाल में अमित जी विद ओम प्रकाश दद्दू.
वो डायलॉग थोड़ा ऐसा भी था ना, दद्दू तुम, वो वैसा.
नो रात को 3 बजे उनकी वहां खटखटाता है ना दरवाजा और अंदर आते हैं ना ओम प्रकाश has asked for a girl, remember?
तुम मेरे दद्दू नहीं हो
तुम मेरे
सकते.
दद्दू नहीं हो सकते.
नहीं हो सकते.
और जब स्मिता पाटिल उनको पकड़ लेती है when he's flirting with all those girls and he completely changes his body language. I mean, he's, it seems like as an actor he's having so much fun, no? On set, so much fun.
I just want to say something, मैंने अभी कहीं पे लिखा है, ये क्रिस्टोफर नोलन बोलता है
जी
कि if you want people to love your stories, you must love them first.
oh
So
yeah
I think if you want people to love your performance, you must love your performance first. You must give it all. Amit ji, I am reiterating. He gives all of it in his performance, in every single thing he does, right from the first film to the last film. The approach is so much that you will never ever believe that he has overdone at any point of time. He has always been balanced in his performance. And that is what appeals to you. Amit ji is somebody who keeps on reinventing and rediscovering himself in his performances, and you rediscover Amit ji with him.
Yeah, and Ashish is coming to performance. To answer a previous question by Nalini ji, because it ties in, is that Nalini ji, when it comes to actors or comparing performances or comparing actors, right? Many a times we have a very or larger audience, not the people on this panel, but we tend to say कि ये subtle है, ये अच्छी acting है, ये underplayed है, अच्छी acting है, ये over the top है. Actually, acting is not that easy to, or is not something that can be bracketed like that. To pull off a Namak Halal, that Daddu scene, or even that dance, right? Pagungru, the entire performance he gives, one needs to be an actor who is at the top of his game.
Yeah.
कोई भी ऐरा गहरा एक्टर आके वो सीन करेगा, खुल जाएगा. It is easier for you to identify that a person is a bad actor when he is actually expressing a lot more. आजकल क्या हो रहा है कि underplayed के चक्कर में lot of average actors are, being considered good and all of that, but underplay करने में खुलना बहुत मुश्किल है एक्टर का. If somebody is doing a quote unquote louder role or giving so many expressions at one point, or pulling off a crazy scene. For example, Amar Akbar Anthony, where he gets beaten up and he delivers that monologue in front of the mirror. Or Satya Pe Satta mein jab wo lamba monologue hai, which दारू पीने से liver सड़ जाता है, and he introduces each of his brothers to Amjad Khan. Right? अगर वो आप scene देखेंगे तो वो dub कभी नहीं हुआ है, because they could never get it right in the dubbing. सो वो ओरिजिनल साउंड विद कैमरा रोल के साथ रिकॉर्ड हुआ है. वो रोल आप कर ही नहीं सकते, वो डायलॉग सीन आप कर ही नहीं सकते इफ यू आर अ बैड एक्टर. यू हैव टू बी नॉट जस्ट अ गुड एक्टर बट एन एक्टर ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर level to be able to pull it off with conviction, which is why I would rate him alongside the topmost actors of any cinema.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Sandeep, you know, I don't know now, maybe Ashuji will know, but what I've heard about Mr. Bachchan is throughout his career, he's one actor. Of course, in the beginning, there weren't any monitors, but after monitors have come into the language of actors in cinema, he doesn't go and watch himself. Or if he does, then it's probably just for his look. That's how confident, like this little trivia that you gave about Satya Pe Satta, yeah, they could never get it. So it was just done there on the spot. And like this, there are so many examples which are right now not coming to mind. We've mentioned 2 or 3 of them where he's improvised. And he's just said, even to Manmohan Desai, he would, you know, that आपने अभी वो शराबी वाला सीन बोला अमर अकबर एंथनी में, तब तो मनमोहन देसाई सेट पे नहीं थे, इन्होंने खुद किया है. पहले से वो सेट पे ही नहीं थे. He was on the other set, he didn't have time and he told them कि आप आपस में कर लो. So बच्चन साहब की बात सुनते तो वो कुछ भी उन्होंने आपस में मतलब कर दिया, खत्म हो गया और बताया कि हमने सीन कर दिया. You know, with the second unit person, there was nobody directing him there. I don't know whether Bachchan, I don't know if this is in any way true or anything. I'm not even trying to imply anything. But the original scene which Dilip Saab has done in the film Kohinoor with Jeevan is...
Oh, yeah, that mirror scene. Yes,
that's the mirror scene.
Bachchan did in Marth.
Yeah. So, but I don't know if that was the inspiration or anything, but he just did it.
The inspiration is actually
from Hollywood.
I think it's a Buster Keaton film.
It is Buster Keaton. Yes, it is. And all, no, and the Marx Brothers as well. The 3 Marx Brothers in that huge mirror scene where the mirror actually breaks.
Oh, yes, yes,
and
yes.
And he still thinks, is that Duck Soup? I don't know if the name of the film is Duck Soup, but they're all the mirror scenes. So probably that's the inspiration, but look how he did it. You know, the putting the bandage on him and everything on that face, and that's all came from Mr. Bachchan. We are all bereft of words. What else to say about this man?
Oh yeah, because I went into the visuals of that scene.
Yeah.
But coming about the drunken scene, one thing is apparently Prakash Mehra, and these were these radio programs that used to come, Nalini, if you remember. I have seen them when they came again, but these were probably recorded sometime in 80s or whatever. And Prakash Mehra says कि मैंने अमिताभ की 1-2 फिल्में देखी, including films made by Prakash Mehra himself. Like Namak Halal, for example, jahan pe he used to be drunk for like one scene and one sequence or something, and it used to be a hit. So Prakash Mehra thought to himself, it seems कि बच्चन को एक पूरी film में ही out रखते हैं, and then see what happens, and that's how Sharabi was made.
Right.
Oh, is it? Oh, amazing! Yeah, I didn't know this. Yeah, wow.
Which has one of my favorite Bachchan lines that आज इतनी भी शराब नहीं है मैं खाने में जितनी हम छोड़ दिया करते थे पैमाने में.
Wow.
Again, fantastic chemistry with Om Prakash.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, Sandeep, also inka drunken jo tha, sorry, Gaurav, I'll just finish and then I'll come to you. You know, drunken scenes के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं तो हम जैसे भेड़चाल होती है ना हमारी, तो इसको रिपीट बहुत बार किया. इन्होंने कसमे वादे में भी रिपीट किया था, and it didn't have the same impact. Remember, there's one scene where he's talking to a cockroach also when he's drunk.
But that came before, if I'm not wrong.
Before which film?
Before Sharabi, Namak Halal and all that. Before, before Sharabi for sure.
Acha, okay. Gaurav, you were saying something?
शराबी का एक और डायलॉग मुझे वो याद आ रहा था, संदीप भाई ने भी बताया, तो वो था ना कि जिगर का दर्द कहीं ऊपर से मालूम होता है, जिगर का दर्द ऊपर से नहीं मालूम होता है. I think that was, I don't know if Bachchan Sir said that or Om Prakash ji said that, but I think the dialogues of the film, of course, you know, were brilliant.
Pata, as such a talent, he's such an all-round talent, complete actor, like we say. So we were talking about his voice and everything. I just wanted to segue into how he's narrated so many films, no? Just his voice was used. And that made it so attractive. I mean, the first of them, of course, was Bhuvan Shom. I don't know if y'all have seen it, but that whole film, he had narrated. But after that, he did Bawarchi, in which there were no titles, there were no title cards. And Bachchan Saab was introducing all the characters.
Yeah, and Ratna, you're so right, because actually, if you see voice of an actor, I think Bachchan is the only one. Visual तो बाद में आया, वॉइस ही अपने आप में बच्चन साहब की एक इतनी बड़ी आइडेंटिटी बन गई, जो पहले किसी और या बाद में किसी और एक्टर को वो मुकाम नहीं मिला है।
बिल्कुल
कमाल
सही।
है ना। और आप सोचते हो कि इनकी आवाज जो है रेडियो स्टेशन ने रिजेक्ट की थी? कैन यू
हाँ,
बिलीव इट?
पता है आशु जी, वो एक्चुअली रिजेक्ट भी नहीं हुई थी। पता है क्या हुआ था उस वक्त? मतलब वो कुछ रिकॉर्ड किया था। अमीन सयानी was too busy and too important in his own. He admits it that he was too big. And this gentleman came. He left his recording, and Amin Sani waited for a long time, but Amin Sani didn't meet him. He just left the studio and he went.
But Ratnam, it's like his voice is something that if it'll just suddenly come to you, you will be like, अरे ये क्या अजीब है कुछ यार, इसको हटाओ. It grows on you, and it needs to have an introduction for people to accept it, because it is so against the grain, against what is happening in the world.
You're talking about right in the initial stage, is it?
I'm not, yeah, I don't know, Ashuji, but I'm not agreeing with that. Now, Ashuji, what do you think?
No, because unless you're talking right at the beginning, his voice कभी अजीब लगी नहीं. हाँ, ये बात अलग थी कि when he came in the initial phase of film industry, he was such a lanky person. He was so thin, and his voice was such a baritone voice he had that you wonder कि is this voice matching his body? That would give you a feeling कि ये क्या है? This is a different thing. But जब जंजीर देखी आपने, और जब जंजीर में आपने उसको, मतलब वो सीक्वेंस है जिसमें वो जया जी को लेके जाकर के सब एक एक करके कपड़ा उठाते हैं और बताते कि ये बच्चों को रौंद के चला गया है. He bellows over there. He roars. And you realize that his voice is also a character. I think he's also in Lagan also his voice is there to narrate the story, right?
Yes, Lagan and जोधा अकबर में भी थी, बावर्ची में तो खैर थी ही, और भुवन शोम में पहली बार इनकी आवाज इस्तेमाल की थी, और फिर शतरंज के खिलाड़ी, आशु जी।
हाँ, मुझे वो याद नहीं है.
हाँ, शतरंज के खिलाड़ी.
Ray and Bachchan collaborated.
Work together. Yes. And परिनीता, क्योंकि उनको इतनी पसंद आई, तो परिनीता में भी उनकी आवाज है, रावण में इनकी आवाज है, और एक साउथ इंडियन डायरेक्टर है, मैं अब देखिए अब नाम भूल रही हूँ, प्रोड्यूसर है कौन है, लेकिन वो फिल्म है ना गाजी अटैक, उसमें भी बच्चन साहब की आवाज इन्होंने इस्तेमाल की है, और इनको लगा भी नहीं था कि वो अग्री करेंगे, एक बार पता क्या हुआ आशु जी, इन्होंने पता नहीं किसको कहा था कि मेरी आवाज मत लो, क्योंकि जिन फिल्मों में मैं आवाज देता हूँ वो फ्लॉप हो जाती हैं.
लगान.
नहीं, लगान तो सुपर हिट है.
लगान, अच्छा.
That was an argument before his voice was chosen.
Then, but why did he say that, Gaurav? Because Bawarchi was not a flop. Bhuvan Shom, of course, was an art film before that. But why did he say that?
I mean, that could have been because, Bachchan, I'm just, thinking aloud that Bachchan could have said कि भाई तुम इतना कुछ ये सब कर रहे हो कि मेरी आवाज से बड़ी है तुम्हारी फिल्म, तुम मेरी आवाज से कहीं ऐसा ना हो कि तुम्हारी पिक्चर का नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट आ रहा है, बिकॉज बच्चन कैन सेट द टोन ऑफ द फिल्म. ही कैन एक्चुअली he has a voice which can kind of take a little away, give too much to a film also. He has that kind of voice quality. मैं समय हूँ वाला आवाज है उनकी, मैं समय हूँ.
हरीश भीमानी की वो आवाज हरीश भीमानी की है, मैं समय हूँ. और पता है ये मुझे याद नहीं है आशु जी, मुझे याद नहीं है, फिल्म तो मैंने देखी है बहुत पहले जब आई थी, बट वो मुझे दोबारा देखनी पड़ेगी. आशु जी, वो फिल्म थी ना बालिका वधू, कहते हैं कि उसमें एक कैरेक्टर है अमल, जिनकी पूरी आवाज बच्चन साहब ने दी है, और मुझे याद भी नहीं है.
अच्छा, मुझे भी अंदाजा नहीं इसका.
Ashuji, before we end this part of the podcast, I just wanted to just throw a little bit of light on this as a personality in real life, and as an actor. Bachchan Saab, because his first 12 films or something flopped, 2 were average or something. And then Anand came, of course. इनके बारे में जो किस्से हैं, लेजेंडरी किस्से हैं, जब इन्होंने इतनी इंसल्ट फेस की है फिल्म इंडस्ट्री से, डायरेक्टर से, इस सब से. ही इज वन पर्सन हु इज एक्चुअली नेवर, जो भी उनके अंदर था वो अंदर ही रखा. उन्होंने उन डायरेक्टर्स के साथ काम किया.
मैं अब एक पर्सनल किस्सा सुनाता हूँ आपको.
जी जी जी.
छोटा सा किस्सा है. मेरी पहली फिल्म जो है वो बनी दीवानापन. और मेरा अमित जी के साथ जो इंटरेक्शन हुआ है उसमें सबसे बड़ा हाथ जो है वो वाशु जी का है, वाशु विज्ञानी का. और ही इज द वन हु एक्चुअली गॉट मी क्लोज एंड अप देयर इन एब्सोल्यूट क्लोज प्रॉक्सिमिटी. तो क्या होता है, पूरी फिल्म बनने के बाद में ना आप एक बार पूरी पिक्चर खुद देखते हैं कि पिक्चर का फ्लो कैसा लग रहा है, ठीक लग रहा है, कम लग रहा है, ज्यादा लग रहा है, काटना है, कहीं नहीं काटना है, बिफोर इट फाइनली रिलीजेस इनटू द थिएटर्स में. 2000 की लगभग की बात कर रहा हूँ. तो मैं चेन्नई में मिक्स कर रहा था फिल्म. और चेन्नई में मिक्स करके ईवीएम में शायद मैंने मिक्सिंग खत्म की, मिक्स करके वापस आ रहा था. तो लास्ट में वाशु जी भी साथ में थे. तो वाशु जी और मैं फ्लाइट में साथ में आ रहे, तब तक पता चला कि जब तक बॉम्बे आ रहा हूँ तब तक कॉपी बन गई. तो उन्होंने मेरे को बोला कि आशु जी हम लोग सुमीत में पिक्चर देख रहे हैं शाम को, रात को 9 बजे. तो बोला अच्छा है, वेरी गुड. तो सुमीत जो है वो प्रकाश मेहरा जी का ही ये था, थिएटर था जो जुहू पे है. तो बोला ठीक है, फर्स्ट क्लास. देन वेरी कॉयली, टंग फर्मली इन हिज चीक, ही सेज अमित जी भी आ रहे हैं. तो मैंने उनको देखा, मैं बोला हैं. फिर बोलते जया जी भी आ रही है. मैं बोला अच्छा. फिर बोलते अभिषेक भी आ रहा है. तो मैं चुप हो गया. फिर बोलते करीना भी आ रही है,
हाँ.
करिश्मा भी आ रही है. मैं बोला वाशु जी मैंने पिक्चर अभी तक पूरी देखी ही नहीं, और आप हम सबके साथ बैठ के देखेंगे पिक्चर. तो बोलते तो क्या हुआ, देखते ना क्या फर्क पड़ता है, फिल्म तो अच्छी बनी, लेट्स सी व्हाट इट इज. मेरी लाइफ की पहली फिल्म जो मैंने डायरेक्ट की, पहला व्यूइंग मेरी कंप्लीट प्रोडक्ट का पहली बार जब मैंने देखी है, तो अमित जी, जया जी, अभिषेक, करीना, अर्जुन, मेहर, दिया, दिया की माँ, मेरी फैमिली, वाशु जी की फैमिली, हम बैठ करके थिएटर देख रहे हैं. आप मुझे बताओ मैं पिक्चर देख सकता हूँ?
नहीं, बिल्कुल भी नहीं.
ये मेरा एक्सपीरियंस था. मतलब उस वक्त में पहली बार अमित जी को नहीं मिला था, अमित जी को मैं पहले भी मिला हूँ, काम भी किया है मैंने. बट मैं ये बता रहा हूँ कि मेरी पहली फिल्म एज ए डायरेक्टर जब मैं बना करके पहली बार खुद पूरी देख रहा हूँ, तो अकेले नहीं देख रहा हूँ, इससे बड़े दिग्गज और हो नहीं सकते इंडस्ट्री में जिनके साथ मैं बैठ करके ये फिल्म देख रहा हूँ. तो मैं तो अपने आप को खुशकिस्मत मानता हूँ कि मुझे अपॉर्चुनिटी मिली अपना काम दिखाने के लिए, उनको दर्शाने के लिए. बट मतलब इट इज नॉट सिंपल टू गो थ्रू दैट लिटिल एक्सपीरियंस दैट आई एम ट्राइंग टू शेयर हियर.
Yeah, of course. You must have been not nervous. Like you're saying, आप फिल्म थोड़ी देख रहे होगे,
फिर
आपका
तो
ध्यान कहीं और होगा. हाँ.
हाँ, खत्म हो गया तब तक तो. मतलब
हाँ.
अभी मुझे तो सारों के रिएक्शंस भी याद हैं, सब लोगों ने आकर के क्या क्या मुझसे उस वक्त कहा था, और सबके बोलने का मतलब व्हाटएवर दे सेड मुझे सब याद है. बट मैं सिर्फ एक बोल रहा हूँ, एक इंसान की जिंदगी में इस तरीके का जब मोमेंट आता है तो इंसान सब कुछ भूल जाता है.
जी. अच्छा, मुझे नहीं लगता कि हमने सरफेस भी स्क्रैच किया है, लेकिन हम अभी पॉडकास्ट एंड करेंगे, ये पार्ट 1. और अगर आप लोगों ने कुछ और बोलना है बच्चन साहब के बारे में, तो हम उसको अगले पॉडकास्ट के लिए रखेंगे. लेकिन मैं चाहती हूँ कि आप सब अपने गुड बाइज बोल दीजिए. अगर कुछ भी आपको लगता है कि इसमें जुड़ा है तो प्लीज बोलिए. संदीप, गौरव, आशु जी.
तो ये वाला पॉडकास्ट जो था, ये मतलब अमित जी को अगर आप सागर मानते हैं, तो हमने अपने पॉडकास्ट के गागर में सागर को डालने की कोशिश की है. अभी भी बहुत कुछ बाकी है, बहुत कुछ बोलना बाकी है, और हम फिर मिलेंगे. और हमने अभी तक तो मुझे लगता है छेड़ा भी नहीं होगा अमित जी के बारे में बात करना. और हमारे पास में इतना कुछ है बोलने के लिए, और हम बेचैन हैं और आपसे शेयर करने के लिए. एंड हम इसको कंटिन्यू करेंगे. नेक्स्ट एपिसोड में फिर इसके बारे में बात करेंगे, और उनके गानों के बारे में, उनका एडवर्टाइजिंग का करियर, उनके टेलीविजन का करियर. उनका स्पैन बहुत बड़ा है, इतना बड़ा है कि उसको समेटते समेटते पता नहीं कितना वक्त लगेगा. But we will come back again with another episode of Mr. Bachchan for your pleasure. And hopefully you like this. And until next time, thank you. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you, Ashuji. Sandeep?
Okay, so like each one of us has discussed at some point of time, that it's very difficult to express our love or cover the filmography and the career of somebody like Bachchan. And in case any of the listeners take offense, I just want to put out a disclaimer there that I always say Bachchan. I don't say Amit ji or Bachchan Saab or something else. That is not meant as a disrespect. It comes from the bottom of my heart. It comes from a lot of love. It comes from that 6-year-old who first saw this magnanimous personality on screen and fell in love with him, and with cinema in due course. So that's where it's coming from. So it's not meant to be in any other way. So yeah, until the next part of the podcast where we'll talk about him a little more. Good night and goodbye.
Thank you, Sandeep. Gaurav, your last thoughts on this podcast?
हाँ जी, तो देवियों और सज्जनों, जब आप बच्चन के फैन होते हैं तो आप मेरे जैसे कॉपी करने लगते हो उनको। मैं भी उनको कॉपी कर रहा हूँ अभी। तो अभी आप लोगों को अगर ये पॉडकास्ट अच्छा लगा है तो ये इसलिए लगा है क्योंकि बच्चन साहब की पहली 10-12 फिल्मों की तरह जो 2 हिट थी, उसी तरीके से ये पॉडकास्ट है कि अभी तो हम लोग सिर्फ पहले, अभी तो नेक्स्ट एपिसोड में आपको असली जंजीर मिलने वाली है बच्चन साहब की, कि अभी तो हमने सिर्फ शुरुआत करी है। तो आप इस एपिसोड को देखिए और उसके बाद अगले एपिसोड पे आइए, उसको सुनिए और हम लोगों के साथ जुड़े रहिए, क्योंकि रिश्ते में तो वो हम सबके नाम है शहनशाह।
बहुत अच्छे, बहुत ही अच्छे. So, okay, listeners, thank you so much for being with us. जैसे सब लोगों ने कहा, मैं भी कह रही हूँ कि we haven't even scratched the surface of Mr. Bachchan, of his contribution to cinema and to our lives, because he has impacted our lives one way or another. Whether we realize it, whether we want to admit it or not, but he did. And he's become a part of our lives, right from the 70s when we first saw him, till date. I mean, the man is, legend is too small a word. Sometimes I feel, we use this word legend also very loosely. Bachchan Saab, we love you. We thank you for the entertainment. We thank you for the acting prowess that you have shown. We thank you for being so larger than life. हम सबको आपने पिछले 60 सालों में आपने इतना एंटरटेन हम सबको किया है. बहुत प्यार करते हैं हम आपसे. आपकी फिल्मों के लिए हम वेट करते हैं. आज भी एक बहुत ही छोटा सा ट्रिब्यूट है आपके नाम on your 81st birthday. Thank you so much, Bachchan Saab, and we'll see you again, listeners, in part 2 of this podcast on Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. Thank you and good night. See you again soon.